Hello and welcome to Business Unmuted, a business discussion live on LinkedIn, shared on platforms including YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As ever, we're kindly sponsored by Virtue BMW, which is part of Gateshead-based Virtue Motors plc. If you're in the market for a new, used or fleet vehicle, its dealerships are in Stockton, Durham, Sunderland, Bolton or York. In the studio this week, I'm joined by Ben Quaintrell, the entrepreneur behind My Property Box, and Nicola Bellerby, tax partner at Clive, Owen LLP. Down the line, we have Caroline Moody of Moody Logistics and Storage. Now, figures out today saw a small downward move in the ongoing inflation saga. It stands now at 3.1%, still ahead of the bank's target of 2%, and most likely a one-off. It might be blipping up again because some things have come out of the figures. Publicans are even warning that the average price of a pint will go up to, £4? Am I reading that right? Yeah, £4. That was in one of the newspapers recently for the first time ever. Elsewhere, there's a shortage of hauliers. Is that driving up prices or is it media hype? We'll find out from an expert. So whether it's drink or a dormer bungalow, prices across the board are going up. And for the first time on record, the property market is experiencing a full house, with prices for all types of properties in all regions heading upwards. Let's start there, Ben Quaintrell, My Property Box. I've just seen that lunchtime today, figures were released saying the northeast of England, which has traditionally had the lowest price houses in the country, prices have gone up by over 13% this year. Does that meet with your experience in the market yourself?
I think so, Graham. It feels right. I mean, at the moment, the market in the northeast really is on fire, particularly around Teesside area. I have an agency in Darlington, and letting sales, the demand is through the roof. Lettings, we're having 30 inquiries to one property on the market. Sales, they're just selling one in, one out at the moment. Towards the Newcastle Tyneside, obviously the Newcastle Football Club, it's all exciting times in the area. We've got the Treasury coming to Darlington. It's all, very good.
So it's all good, and I suppose from your point of view, you've got this pace of property transactions. What about actual properties available? Are people holding their properties, or is the pace they're going off the shelf so fast you can't find new properties to replace them?
Yeah, I think most agents will agree. If agents are watching this at the moment, everyone's just short on stock. Everyone's just short on stock, both for lettings and sales. The demand is just so high. It really is.
Nicola, you're a tax partner at Clive Owen LLP, and obviously that's a whole service accountancy business. What is your general feeling about the economy? You hear that from Ben. Surely that underpins something solid.
Certainly does, but I think the stamp duty land tax reductions probably help Ben with that. But a lot of clients, they've benefited by the furlough, but now it's and they've had time to have a look back at the companies and see what could be improved in the companies. Time to take stock.
Now, this taking stock that you're talking about, you've got lots of clients, and Recognition has lots of clients. You've got many more than me, but I think the common denominator between your firm and my firm is we look at different clients in different sectors. Now, a lot of my clients at Recognition PR are positive about the future, still asking us to promote positivity, but perhaps the investment that they're producing or talking about is slowing down. Do you get a sense of this sort of stabilising of the growth?
I think it will stabilise, but the clients are very nervous about, especially importers. So importers are finding it hard to get their goods across from China to here. They're even being gazumped when using a house price term. They've got their haulage and everything sorted out, but they're getting gazumped at the last minute. Supply and demand, I suppose. It's that old economics thing. So, and the price of that's going, so that pushes the price of that up. The price of the goods is going up. The price of labour is going up. There isn't the labour there, and that's causing for the long term, that's causing a worry. And the corporation tax rates are going up in a couple of years as well. Again, that might reduce the investment that they can put into their businesses. So it's an uncertain time. People are thinking, we've had all this furlough money, that's got us through. We've got to pay it all back now. They can see that Rishi Sunak's got to balance the books.
Okay, let's come to Rishi in a minute,
yes,
because
I'm
the budget's next
ahead.
week. But it's a good segue because you talked about haulage. Let's talk to Caroline. And by the way, Caroline was due to be on a few weeks ago, but she won an award. Caroline from Moody Logistics. What award did you win?
I'm Northern Transport Woman of the Year.
Fantastic. Well deserved, because the business is a long-standing business and you've taken it through some great growth in this turbulent time. Tell me about the your view on the haulage crisis that's been talked up in the media. Have you got a shortage of drivers?
From a personal perspective in our business, no, we don't have a shortage of drivers. We've managed to ride the storm quite well. We've got a good crew of loyal staff who've been with us for a long time. So we've lost an odd one, but when we put an advert up for new ones, we are at least getting inquiries about them. Maybe it's not the perfect person, but we've always been about recruiting for attitude, and we can always train to do the job right. So the attitude and the culture is more what we look for. So touch wood, we are okay for now, and we seem to be riding the storm okay and managing to look after our customers.
Let's look at the issue in the general rather than at your firm, because your firm is award-winning, so it's going to be good. But let's look at the general haulage sector. It's true, is it not, that a lot of people think of a sort of 1980s, 1970s stereotype of a bloke that's going to have a career in trucking, but younger people don't look at it, and they'd be surprised if younger people went into it. Are you managing to attract young people to become the truckers of tomorrow?
Yes, again, I can only talk how we find, but when we put an advert out there for a driver apprentice, for example, which doesn't necessarily have to be a young person. Of course, a driver apprentice could be somebody much older looking for a career change, but we still get an awful lot of inquiries from younger people in their 20s, certainly looking, in fact, even younger sometimes. Sometimes we insist somebody has at least 2 years car license driving experience before we even want to consider putting them through their truck license. Just that's our policy and how we feel safe to progress them. But yeah, we get a lot of applicants, so that's not necessarily how we see it when we put adverts out there.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to see that you're getting the apprenticeships sorted, because that's a different route. Many people see that the route is to go through this more formal training where the individual could pay £2,000 to £3,000, but you've done it a different way, haven't you?
Yes, we have. I mean, we've done a bit of both. We are quite happy to take on newly qualified drivers if they have the right attitude, and then train them into the job, if you like. But we have put about 5 this year that we've done about 5 government apprenticeship schemes where we've taken them on and we've done the full government apprenticeship training along with ourselves into the role. This year we took on 2 in April, which I think was, looking back, a very good move. We made that decision because then it was subsequent to that all the driver issues happened. We already had 2 lined up to put through ourselves, and at that point we decided the government scheme for apprenticeships was just too long-winded, and looking at the way that business was moving, we need to be a lot more agile and quicker, and so we've actually paid for the licenses ourselves without any funding from the government, put them through, got them trained. We've got another one about to start next week and a 4th one lined up for the next couple of months.
Now, there are other less technical things that might put people off joining the profession. During the period that the HGV shortage has been discussed in the media, there's been a lot about truck stops being awful places, having to lay up overnight and take a pee in the bushes and things like that. Is that a characteristic that you recognised when you saw it being ventilated in the press?
Yes, it is, definitely. I mean, how lorry drivers are treated is very unfortunate, and I hope with this driver shortage platform, people like myself can talk about it and get people aware of how key the drivers are. I remember at the very start of COVID, we actually had to issue all our drivers with letters because they were turning up at a lot of sites, and where often they would nip in and use the loo when they were sort of delivering goods at a place, and everyone was refusing them access to their sites to go to the toilet because of COVID.
So they spend hours on the road. They get the kit to the destination, and then no one will let them use the loo.
Which when you think back, I know everyone was scared at the time, but it was a bit mean to the lads. What did they expect them to do, sort of thing? Legally people can't refuse them, so we issued them with government letters to say they have a right to be able to use the toilet in a place they're actually delivering a full load to. So yeah, it's hopefully maybe this being aired now will maybe get manufacturers and retailers where the goods go from and to realise actually just maybe a little bit more respect with our industry, and we need to work together. You know, it's not about one being more important than the other. A good haulier is the one that works with its customers and the manufacturers to get it to the retailers, and rather than, I think, the big distribution centres cause a lot of problems. And what's happening now is, while things are good for us as hauliers, we can get a list off a lot of manufacturers of loads they want done, and quite naturally we are all picking the easy places to make deliveries to. Because somewhere that makes you stand in line for 4 or 5 hours, we haven't got time to do it. That's another load we can't get off.
Yeah.
So hopefully, again, this whole issue might raise issues at distribution centres for them to look closely at themselves about how they work better with the hauliers to let we get our loads off. We don't want to be sat somewhere for hours waiting to tip a load, you know, and positive will come out of it.
Sometimes in all the discussions of these things, it's the practical measures that can be the most important. Listen, there's been one other thing. I couldn't resist asking you this because you're such an expert, having done it for so long. Boris Johnson was saying on the media a couple of weeks ago that he wasn't going to allow lots of extra passes for immigrant labour in the HGV sector because he wanted to help wages be forced up. It was about levelling up. In the end, the government have allowed other lorry drivers from abroad to make drop-offs while they're here. Talk to me about that. It's quite complex for the layman and the person outside the industry to understand the dynamic between your labour costs and immigrant labour costs. People get work visas here. How does it balance out for you in the North East?
For us personally, European labour has never been anything significant. We've never used them or needed them. Not that we're against them, just it's never been. So the Brexit issue has not been an issue to us really. It might be different in elsewhere, other parts of the country maybe, so I can't speak for them necessarily. Their idea of bringing extra people in, for us wouldn't really, I can't say that would help us in any particular way.
So you're a bit agnostic about letting people in with more visas. It's not going to change it. You prefer to have the wage settlements that you're agreeing.
Yes, I mean, I can only talk for us in the North East. You know, I'm not an expert now in certain other parts of the country where maybe they did have higher volumes of European labour. That could be different for them. But for us, no, that wasn't a cure to the problem. For us, what we want government to do was to speed up the process and how long it takes to get your provisional driving licence back, you get in for your theory test, get in for your main driving test. You know, all of that even taking 6 months is too long. Why?
Yes.
Why, you know, can't we get a provisional licence back within a week? Why does it have to take 6 weeks to get back? And that's in the government's hands, and that's the very annoying thing with government keeps saying it's all in our hands. It's not. The people like me, I will put people through their tests, but I'm very much in the hands of the government of how fast they'll move with the testing stations.
Oh, a fair point, well made. I think it was Ronald Reagan who said the most terrifying words in the English language is I'm from the government, I'm here to help. It doesn't always help, does it? Caroline, thank you. We'll just go to our other guest for a moment. Well, first, what do you make of what she has to say? Because obviously she knows more about it than you or I. It's quite revealing, isn't it?
Yeah. I always think the haulage industry, that's the key to everything. If the haulage industry is doing badly, everything's doing badly. Because they're moving everything around. So if things are getting made and produced and sold, it's them, you know. So. But
it is interesting. I mean, all of us in this room have lived through good times and bad. But this is a product of rapid good times, is it not? The growth and things are in the wrong place. There's lots being made. There's a competition for labour, competition for resources, competition for stock in housing.
I just feel from a property side of things at the moment in the North East, it's just on fire. The development that's going on in the town in Darlington, Teesside, the southern investment that's coming up here. I was at a networking meeting on Friday and I would have said 30 to 40% of the room were from the south. They've moved up it, they've come up to book hotels, Airbnbs, because they want to get involved in property in Teesside and the North East, which is just exciting time.
And this is a bit new for us. I mean, you've run your family has run your business for generations. Are you seeing this demand, Caroline, escalating in your own business? Are you seeing this kind of good times causing new problems?
Yeah, that's how I think it all started really back in March, April. When we came out of lockdown, you had all this pent-up demand that suddenly everyone was opening up and restocking, etc. So, and that happened right at a period between where we had 4 weeks, with only 4-day weeks, with Easter and the May bank holidays. So I think that kind of started the driver issue where, already demand was massively up and, we couldn't cope with in those 4 days of the week that most places are open, because as much as we might work the weekend, not everybody else wants to open to receive their deliveries then. So yes, I think it is a big demand thing. And every industry seems short of labour. I know the haulage industry's on the headlines at the moment, but from what I see, we just get the headlines. I think a lot of industries are really struggling for good staff, and I think my daughter put it quite well. She works in retail, and I think there's maybe this thing where some people had the time off with furlough or just didn't work over the pandemic. That sort of middle stream where they don't have to work, but they work because they want to, not because they have to. And I think a lot of those people maybe have just decided not to come back to work when they've quite enjoyed their last year or 18 months. Have we lost a lot of people in that stream, whether that's in retail, whether that's in transport, whether that's in the hospitality market, all those ones that are struggling. We've lost people who've just decided now, I don't need to work, and I've enjoyed a couple of years at home not doing that.
Let's talk to let's move on and back to the issue with Nicola. Nicola, supply and demand equals inflation, and we're starting to see that. Now, when it comes to the inflation, it actually does hit household finances, doesn't it? It's not a sort of a technical issue; it's a real issue. And is that, do you think, something that businesses are now going to have to get to grips with planning for?
Well, I think they are. As the prices increase, and if wages aren't increasing, then people have less money to spend.
When you're seeing your clients plan, staff shortages and staff wages clearly are coming into the equation.
Yeah, there's pressure. Engineering firms, for example, they just can't get engineers. I've heard of engineering firms with engineer apprentices. They're going to work and drive vans for Amazon, and it's easier work. You were saying about people. No, actually, it was Caroline saying about people finishing work. There's a lot of people now in their 50s that we're talking to, our clients, that are wanting to sell up. It's exactly as Caroline said. They've had enough. They've seen what it's like not to be working. They've decided they probably don't need that much money to spend as they thought they did, and it's a bit like life's too short. And people are coming more and asking us about inheritance tax. We could never get people to talk about death before. And they're all it's not really about business, but it's those people with those businesses that are starting to plan a lot more now.
Let's talk a little bit about the budget and round off on that, because next week, by the way, we have a live edition of this programme which is taking place at Virtue Motors BMW dealership in Preston Farm, Stockton, and we'll be discussing the budget because it will have just happened. Now, let's talk about what you think would be good in the budget. Come to you last, Caroline. So get your thoughts. I'm sure that there'll be something about she wants some money off Derv. But anyway, let's come to that. Nicola, you in the generality, let's look at the landscape on tax and incentives that the budget could give.
Well, we know that corporation tax rates are going up. We've talked about that. That seems like it's going to happen. So a rise from 19% to 25% is going to affect a business like Caroline's. So what I'd like to see is a continued investment so that companies can buy, so I'll use Caroline as an example, she can buy those lorries, she can get what's called the super deduction. So if she spends £100,000, she's treated as if she spent £130,000. That's getting her another driver if she has another wagon. It's all about investment.
So you might get a penalty of tax, but you'll also get an incentive for good spending.
Yes, definitely. And I'd like to see that on training as well. Some kind of incentive there that's easier to access. We've had, we have apprentices as well. I feel Caroline's paying with the apprenticeship schemes. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of work.
And what about the north of England? We've got big things that are coming up in the north of England. Yesterday, the government announced funding for the net zero project's carbon capture and storage in Teesside. 3 ports are coming up as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to be funded. We're very positive about that. Our clients are so much so we're even opening an office in Middlesbrough.
That's right. Actually, it's a fair point. You're a Darlington firm opening in Middlesbrough. Then you'll have Middlesbrough, York, and Durham and Darlington. 4 offices.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
We were positive enough to think, well, we're going to open another office there. So yeah, interesting to see how that's going to be funded, I think.
Okay, that's levelling up in practice. Ben, what about you? You obviously. You might think that stamp duty has to go back. It might, the market for property at 13% growth, it's also a little unhealthy, isn't it?
For the stamp duty side, for the investment sort of, so if you think a northeast investor or even from the south now investing in a property in the northeast, it might only be up to 100k. So actually the stamp duty is a bit of a sting, but it's not the end of the world based on the return and the level that you can get. But a lot of our clients, and like Nicola's just said about corporation tax, will have limited companies. A lot of professional landlords have limited companies, so they will feel that. But landlords watching this now will be thinking, yeah, we have been squeezed a lot over the last couple of years. Selective licensing is now being rolled out into different areas. It's in Durham. It's looking to come to Darlington soon, maybe. So, the market is great. It's exciting time, but it does feel sometimes landlords are being squeezed, and we'll have to wait till next week to see what else is to come. Okay,
and Caroline, you're going to the last word here. You're getting last word. So Rishi Sunak is delivering his budget. If he has a line that's written by Caroline Moody, what would it say?
Keep fuel prices down. But that's inflation. I've always said that's inflation linked.
Absolutely.
Because the minute fuel goes up, everything goes up in price because everything's transported.
Well, that's short and sweet. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Nicola. Thank you for joining us. We're live next week to discuss the budget after it's happened. And we're going to be at one of Virtue Motors' premier dealerships, and we thank them for accommodating us. We'll see you next week on Business Unmuted.